Salve Omnibus, everyone. Just a little. This isn't gonna be a full video or anything. It's just gonna be a bit of a ramble, and it's gonna be kind of based on. Well, last night I had about a 3-hour stream with the Distributist talking about what we kind of see as having been the failure of the political right in the past several decades, and where we should be going from here. And unfortunately, for some reason, the stream didn't record my voice. So it would just be him talking to nothing. So obviously I can't really upload it now. But I did think it was pretty productive. And I think a lot of what we talked about was... I think his perspective is very much based upon the long-term goals. In that with the whole kind of fight against the progressives, against the SJWs and Islam, is that I think it's very much clear that we're fighting a new culture war. And it's very much, as kind of Milo said, it's not really so much between, you know, conservatives or liberals or right-wing, left-wing. It's between authoritarian, libertarian, in the sense that the far left, the radical left progressives have gone completely crazy and are no longer really interested in concepts like freedom of speech, and they're just interested in pushing a narrative. And of course this has caused an obvious split between the classical liberals, like people like Sargon and Kraut, and the progressives. And the thing is that I think what needs to happen is that whilst we are getting a good start, we are getting more and more pushback against the progressives, I think more consolidation and coalitions are necessary if we really want to have a solid, clear opposition to them. And I think that would involve then the traditionalist and genuine conservative communities seeing these people like Sargon as fundamental allies, and them seeing it vice versa. I think that the classical liberals also have to see us conservatives as allies as well, because as much as they might say that apart from a few things they fundamentally disagree with us, I actually disagree with that. Classical liberals and traditionalist conservatives do agree on the fundamentals, on the things that are really, really important, such as freedom of speech, having rational discussion, not forcing people to accept a certain narrative or a certain ideology that is fundamentally poisonous and completely based on pillars of sand. And also seeing the fundamental threat that Islam poses to the West. And the thing is that a lot of them are starting to realize, I think, as well, is that the institutions and fundamental principles and values and traditions of the West are important, and they are of value to keep. Like, Sargon had his little talk about what he thinks is, we need to have a restoring of classical education. And I fully agree with that, and I think that's part of the concept of these institutions and traditions are of value. And I think from where we go from here is, my analogy I gave in my stream was that right now there's a bathtub filling up with water. The water is the SJWs and progressives, and what the skeptic community and liberals, and I think some conservatives have been trying to do, is when they make these response videos to the SJWs and the progressives, what they're doing is they're just scooping water out of the bathtub. And whilst that is still necessary to eventually empty it, the problem is what you really have to do is turn the water off. You have to turn off the faucet. And I think Sargon kind of had a good idea with his petition that this starts in academia. This starts in these institutions like colleges and the media. But I think that fundamentally his petition is not going to do much good. Even if the whole point of it is not necessarily to get these courses banned, but at least start a conversation, I still don't think he understands a lot of the mindset then of the progressives is they're not going to listen. Like, he compared it, that fact that, if GTA could get banned with a 50,000 petition, his thing must get something done with an 80,000 signatures, but no, they're just going to choose to ignore that. And but I still think that is a right direction, that we should be focusing on these institutions and dismantling the kind of power structure they're in right now. And so I think that maybe a direction we should be going is, this is advice for Sargon and a lot of you guys, is that if you really want to start making genuine change, if you really want to start turning off that faucet, I would actually start making videos against professors. I would be making arguments against like writers for the Huffington Post, or, you know, where all this stuff is coming from, not the product of it. So my advice, yeah, would be, Sargon, your next video should be, or any of you guys, it should be on, you know, what these professors are teaching. And the whole thing is, of course there are social justice courses, and they do need to be dealt with. But the problem is, you know, I recently graduated from college, and the social justice crap, it's not just in these specific courses. It's in every course. It's in a basic, you know, American literature course. It's in a basic, you know, history or an English course. And I think it's not so much the courses themselves, but it's the professors. And that's who needs to really be the target, not the idiot students that come out. Like, Milo Stewart is not a threat to anybody, but whoever her professor or whoever wrote the book she's read, or the article she's read, or whoever she is, that's the real threat. And I guess then turning to, you know, traditionalists, is from what from the stream and the one before that I did publish, is that what I think in the past culture war, you know, with stuff like gay marriage and the fundamental problem that I think the right had was we were as the Distributist said, like, we were trying to defend something well when the battle was already fundamentally lost. Like with marriage, is since we had already ceded all the ground to, you know, the sexual revolution, what was the point of defending marriage? Because it was only inevitable before that one would fall. And the thing is that what should have happened was we should have been going after the whole concept of the sexual revolution in the first place, and showing why those ideas, why the outcomes of those are fundamentally negative. And I still think we can start doing that, and that's what we should be doing by, you know, exposing the problems of having a single, you know, showing why children need a mother and a father, showing why the traditional family is important, why abstinence before marriage is needed, why, you know, why having sexual modesty and modesty in general is a genuine positive for us. And basically going after the base of the progressive narrative in sexuality. And the thing is then, what we need to be trying to do is to have the, you know, a coalition of conservatives and classical liberals. So I think for us conservatives and liberals now, who I do genuinely believe have a lot more in common than we do different, because we do agree on a lot of fundamentals, and it's perfectly fine for us to disagree with each other, because at least the basis of society will still be agreed upon and enforced. I think what needs to happen is, my aim would be to try and expose the left-wing, the progressives narrative as so extreme and fundamentally not part of what should be the political spectrum at this point, that we do need to drag it. And if we are successful, the political spectrum will be dragged significantly further to the right, because the progressives who are so far left will be completely disavowed. And the people like Sargon, who at this point would be considered center, would now become part of the left. And I think, though, that would be a much more healthy spectrum to go off of, because you could have genuine people on the right and people on the left, you know, with solid narratives, with a solid kind of foundation that neither side really has to give into it to the other, that the right doesn't have to give into or accept certain left-wing premises, whilst the left now would have to accept certain foundations of society that the right admires and upholds. But yeah, I think the most important part would be to go after not the output, but the input, the ideology itself. Like, I think it would be really important to go after not only the professors, but the fundamental literature. Like, if you want to disprove Islam, if you want to go after Islam, what do? You don't really go after particular Muslims. That's not going to do it. You have to fundamentally kind of expose the writings, the basic foundations of Islam as being inherently immoral. I think whether or not they want to really admit it, I think the left, or the liberals, do believe that they have asserted multiple times that certain cultures are better than others, that Western culture is objectively superior to Islamic culture in how it treats people and how its society is built. But I think even further, if we really want to be able to win, if we really want to be able to have a fundamental bulwark against the progressives and everybody else, is to assert that certain morals, certain moralities are superior. That certain things, like killing people is fundamentally wrong. That even if it's done in self-defense, it may be justified, but killing somebody, taking a human life, is still fundamentally immoral. And, the basic concept that you should not be able to treat people less than you would treat yourself, that needs, those moral precepts are fundamentally, objectively better. I guess what I'm trying to get at here at the end of this video is that not only does culture matter, but morality matters. That morality needs to have a place in society, or else you can't have a free society. And I think that's kind of where my Burkean conservative comes in that the most apt quote that describes my own political philosophy as a conservative, as a traditionalist conservative, maybe liberal conservative, would be, Burke said, would be that liberty does not exist in the absence of morality. In meanings that, if we want to have a free society where you have freedom of speech, where you have the basic freedom to live your life the way you want, we have to have certain cultural morals, we have to have certain morality, or else those freedoms will fundamentally be lost. And I think that, it was first kind of shown with the French Revolution, in which the when the ideas of certain moralities are disregarded, then liberty will also be destroyed. It will be lost. And today it's happening just on a much longer time scale, in that with the sexual revolution of the 60s and 70s, with progressivism and third wave feminism, and second wave feminism, third wave feminism, I think, unfortunately, Sargon and that crowd, you're not going to want to hear this, but the secularization of society and the getting rid of basic morals, that is not going to fundamentally serve freedom in the long run. You can't have a free society that isn't moral. There's no example of this existing. And I suppose then you would probably agree with this, but the problem being that, saying that morality is not something that's concrete, when you argue that there is no set, true, objectively good morality, I think then that's pretty much the same thing as saying that, well, yeah, morality should just be disregarded since you can't define it. Since there is no clear definition of what is right and wrong. When you reject the belief that there is a fundamental right and wrong, then I think that will lead to an immoral society and a loss of freedom. And so I think that's the fundamental problem I think classical liberals have, is they want their cake and they want to eat it too. They want to be a free society, they want freedom, but they also don't want any of the responsibilities or morality in it. And you can't have both. And I suppose on a last note, the fundamental problem is, as popular as Sargon and Thunderfoot and The Amazing Atheist are, with hundreds of thousands of subscribers, the problem is that they are not really well known in the media, that they're not the ones that the average person knows about. The average person who watches Fox News or CNN or MSNBC don't know who these people are. But I think as of right now, the problem is, while we're fighting successful battles at this point, and Gamergate was a huge part of that, on the larger scale of things, it's not really being felt. The impact is not really felt. The average person doesn't even know who Milo is, And so I think they really want to have real cultural change in this new culture war, because it is a culture war. Culture matters right now, and cultural narratives matter even more. The fact is that what we have to do is get ourselves out there and known to the public, you know? And if there's any way you guys can figure out how to do this, I would really advise you to do that. Now, I think that, all that being said, I think to summarize my points would be, because this is going out to everybody from Sargon to the Distributist, all the people that are fundamentally opposed to progressives and Islam, is the fact that, number one, I would put aside the differences between classical liberals and conservatives right now. I think that anybody, you've already probably understood this, that attacking Christian conservatives or conservatives in general is fruitless. There's no real point to it right now. And that fundamentally, at this point, we are allies because we do believe in in the same principles. Secondly, I think when you make your videos, I would go after not the social justice warriors, but their professors, the books, and the basic academic and media institutions they inhabit, because that's how you're going to start. That's both going to get you more noticed more, and it's going to get you guys more, it's going to be able to help crumble their narrative, because when you have people, you know, questioning the professors, when you have people, you know, completely dismantling a professor's argument, that's going to have a much bigger impact than attacking an individual student's narrative. And then thirdly, I think, would be to get as well known as you can. Get known outside of just the YouTube. Get known outside of Twitter. Get known within the, if you possibly can, on the media, in terms of, you know, television and that. Be public. Get as public as you can. Like, speak to people on the street. And like Sargon, you said, like, I would definitely advise Sargon, you should go to one of these classes when school returns and just, you know, sit in on one of the classes and then question the professor. That would be really good. That would be a fundamentally good thing to do. And lastly, I guess then for conservatives, for Christians and traditionalists, would just be, we need to stop trying to, I mean, we pretty much lost the culture wars, gay marriage being legalized last year, but at this point, like, we need to be, if we want to attack them, we have to attack them at the source, which is the sexual revolution. We have to attack the basic ideas of sexual liberation and showing why those ideas are fundamentally wrong. So I really hope you guys hear this. I really hope people like Sargon, Kraut and T, Armored Skeptic, TJ, Thunderfoot, you all hear this. And I think that if we can really consolidate, we can win against these people. And we really have to. If we don't want a future of... Because the thing is, the bigger problem is Islam. These social justice warriors are not that really big of a threat. Like, I'm not intimidated by any of them. I really don't care what they have to say to me or what they could possibly do to me. I'm scared of Islam. And that's who they're bringing in. That's the real threat. So, thanks for watching. I hope I wasn't too much on a ramble. Diabana.